Hey guys, Rob John Webb here for Waxadisc, and what if I told you we were going back to the late 80s, but kind of mid-late 80s, like 87. So, at that time, house music was just emerging. It was, on the cusp of becoming the thing that it is. And at the same time, in the clubs, in the commercial clubs and whatever it was, in those days, there was a sound that was kind of high energy, disco, but pop at the same time, but electro, bit of a mishmash of everything. And what got me thinking about this was the other day I heard Taylor Dane Tell It to My Heart, and it just, made me think about that style and that sound. So what I've done is I've created a little demo here to show you how you can do that yourself and have a little bit of fun with that and see what comes of it. So let's crack on. Right, so you can see I've got a little demo up here and I've got 10 tracks in total. And in fact, I've got 9 because that one I've not decided to use, so I want to get rid of that. So we've got 9 tracks here, and 3 of them are drums anyway, or 4 of them are drums, so to speak. So it's very simple, very straightforward, quite minimal, but very busy. So as I want to get to it in a minute, I'm going to play you the track now and have a listen to this. Here we go. And there you go. All the elements of that classic sound that was coming out around 86, 87. So we're going to go through all of that now and see what we come up with. Here goes. Right, so I wanted to use a drum machine. These sounds here, if I remember correctly, come from the Roland D70. So in the Roland D70, you've got these classic sort of sounds, which are, if I can just get them up on here and press record. And then the other one is, where's it? There. So it's just that kick, snare, clap, a little shaker, a tom, electric tom, and then a close and open. And that's it. And the cowbells. And that is that for the cowbells. So we've got the drums, and basically the pattern is, it's almost like an electro sort of beat, really. If you imagine you had 808s doing this, it's a similar sort of beat. So if I slow it down, I've done it at 125, by the way, but if I slow it down to 198. So that's all that is, basically. You can have it, I was going to have it at 130, but 125 is just about right. So that was the drums. It was the D70 drums from the Roland. And then the cowbell is just from Ableton stock. It is, if I look rightly, if I just have a quick look at it, it is the LD cowbell, so it's the Lindrum cowbell, and then the 808 on the end. I just threw an 808 in there just to give it a bit of effect. And then the tom, which is also from the D70, is that classic 80s tom, but I pitch bent it and gone like this, look. And there's just another classic 80s technique. So you've got that. So that's that. Bass line. Right, I've used the Korg M1 for the bass line, and it's called the Spitzer. And it's a sound in there, and it's just basically really hard. Real classic sort of old school setup. So yeah, the bass pattern there, it's really sort of arpeggiated. It's really hard and repetitive. Fast stabs is the technique for this sort of music. So you want to be hitting the notes, whatever bass you use, a real fat synth bass and just real fast sort of arpeggiated almost. So that's the sort of technique that you want to have for this. You don't want to have too like boogie basses, really hard hitting sort of bass sounds. So that was the bass line. Next up then we needed a lead synth, which is obviously the sort of kind of classic Again, use some sort of bell sound, a synth bell sound, and high up in the octaves, or just a synth sound but high up. I've used one called the Iceman, which is from the again from the M1. It sounds really naff now, you know, that sort of. But when you've got the octaves, pure 80s, isn't it? That so you know, use a sort of bell sort of sound. You know, a kind of kind of like a celestial sort of sound on top of that, and then put that on your bass line. There you go. So that's what you want. You want to have that lead line in the high bells, bass line, and the lower notes. Next up, then we want a synth brass, a classic synth brass. Again, I've used the M1. I used the M1 because this came out in 1987, so it's kind of that era. You know, it was the synth of that time. But you know, nevertheless, you can get most of these sounds from many of your plugins now. The brass, classic 80s synth brass. You know, that's all that is. And I've done a little bit of modulation, you know, on some of the notes. I think, yeah, if I just solo it and have a look at that. Let's have a look at these notes here, look. There. Straightforward sounds, but here, it's got a wobble on it. Just a subtle one. And that's just got that really subtle modulation on there. So let's have a look at this. So yeah, put that on, and then on the lead line there, sort of thing, you've got like high notes. So you've got the chords there of the track, but basically they're in a higher octave, so they're not acting as chords like, you know, lower down where you got like, they've gone right up, you know, even higher. So it's like whatever the chords were, which was F, G major, E minor, A minor. So that's that. So yeah, use those sort of, you know, classic 80s synth brass sounds if you want that sort of thing. Next up then is the classic, your 80s orchestral stab, which is synonymous in many records in the 80s, late 80s. Pet Shop Boys were big for it. Loads of pop records were big on using this. And this is from the Monster Synth, which is free. It's called the Giant Centipede. And that's all it is. It's the classic sound. So grab that. The crash is just another D70 crash. And then the one thing that I put in here, which I'll add, this could take a lot of more processing, is to get an acapella, okay? Put it through the simpler and just go. And it's that classic 80s, throw a vocal in the sampler and pitch it up and throw loads of crazy sort of vocals on it. So let's see what we'll get here. So. You know, obviously, what you've got to do is you've got to tune it. I've just thrown in an acapella on there, but you've got to tune it. And the best way to tune it is to find what key it's in. So get a spectrum analyzer, press the middle note, press middle C, and look for the highest peak. And up there, and it says C. It's already in C because I've tuned it actually. But if you go to one shot, if you put it back to natural on the transposition, it will say, if I just get this, if I do it again, there, it's in E. So I need to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, -4. Let's have a look at that. Let's just check. I think that's -4. Let's have a look. And then back to classic and. I think I had it pitched it +4 earlier, but anyway, it's there. So that's the way to one of the ways to tune your vocal. Anyway, there's various ways of doing it, but yeah, get that classic sort of, and then put it together. So that's basically it for how to make that late 80s high energy vibe. Drum racks from those days are the Roland D70. You know, you can use the Lindrum even, those sort of things. But real big snares, a lot of kind of, you know, reverb snares. You know, those are the kind of drums that were being used. Cowbells, toms, thick bass line, glass sort of bell sort of lead line, synth brass, orchestral stabs, and a vocal that has been pitched and, you know, put through a sampler, whatever, and put some delay on it and reverb and just give it a bit of character, and away you go. So that's it. That's all you need for this type of music, this kind of late 80s high energy stuff. Take from this what you will and employ it and have a bit of a go at it and see how you get on. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.